Dudden. Illustration 2.png. Good evening, Hudden. Good evening, Dudden. You thought you had played me a fine trick, but you never did me a better turn in all your lives. When I found poor Daisy dead, I thought to myself, well, her hide may fetch something, and it did. Hides are worth their weight in gold in the market just now. Hudden eyes Dudden, and Dudden winked at Hudden. Good evening, Donald O'Neary. Good evening, kind friends. The next day there wasn't a cow or a calf that belonged to Hudden or Dudden, but her hide was going to the fair in Hudden's biggest car drawn by Dudden's strongest pair of horses. When they came to the fair, each one took a hide over his arm, and there they were walking through the fair, bawling out at the top of their voices, "Hides to sell! Hides to sell!" Out came the tanner. "How much for your hides, my good men? Their weight in gold." "It's early and the dad had come out of the tavern." That was all the tanner said, and back he went to his yard. "Hides to sell! Fine fresh hides to sell!" Out came the cobbler. "How much for your hides, my men? Their weight in gold." "Is it making game of me you are? Take that for your pains." And the cobbler dealt Hudden a blow that made him stagger. Of the people came running from one end of the fair to the other. "What's the matter? What's the matter?" cried they. "Here are a couple of vagabonds selling hides at their weight in gold," said the cobbler. "Hold 'em fast! Hold 'em fast!" bawled the innkeeper, who was the last to come up. He was so fat, I'll wager it's one of the rogues who tricked me out of 30 gold pieces yesterday for a wretched hide. It was more cakes than halfpence that Hudden and Dudden got before they were well on their way home again. And they didn't run any slower because all the dogs of the town were at their heels. Well, as you may fancy, if they loved Donald little before, they loved him less now. "What's the matter, friends?" said he, as he saw them tearing along, their hats knocked in, and their coats torn off, and their faces black and blue. "Is it fighting you've been? Or mayhap you met the police?" "Ill luck to them. We'll police you, you vagabond. It's mighty smart you thought yourself, deluding us with your lying tales." "Who deluded you? Didn't you see the gold with your own 2 eyes?" But it was no use talking. Pay for it he must, and shares into a sophisticated. There was a meal sack handy, and into it Hudden and Dudden popped Donald O'Neary, tied him up tight, ran a pole through the knot, and off they started for the brown lake of the bog, each with a pulling on his shoulder, and Donald O'Neary between. But the brown lake was far, the road was dusty, Hudden and Dudden were sore and weary, and parched with thirst. There was an inn by the roadside. "Let's go in," said Hudden. "I'm dead beat." It's heavy he is for the little he had to eat. If Hudden was willing, so was Dudden. As for Donald, you may be sure his leave wasn't asked, but he was lumped down at the inn door for all the world as if he had been a sack of potatoes. "Sit still, you vagabond," said Dudden. "If we don't mind waiting, you needn't." Donald held his peace, but after a while he heard the glasses clink, and Hudden singing away at the top of his voice. "I won't have her, I tell you, I won't have her," said Donald, but nobody heeded what he said. "I won't have her, I tell you, I won't have her," said Donald, and this time he said it louder, but nobody heeded what he said. "I won't have her, I tell you, I won't have her," said Donald, and this time he said it as loud as he could. "And who won't you have? May I be so bold as to ask?" said a farmer, who had just come up with a drove of cattle, and was turning in for a glass. "It's the king's daughter. They are bothering the life out of me to marry her,"